I would find it very hard to put Hawaii into words in describing it. I've always felt ultimately a place, it's what it makes you feel. It's not just about what's there, or it's ultimately how a place makes you feel. And for me, Hawaii was I felt my happiest. It was that feeling that it brought me. They had this expression, it was called the spirit of aloha. Aloha is a Hawaiian word. They use it to greet, to say hello, to say goodbye. And it's also used in talking about the spirit of the people. And I was very drawn to the spirit. I got that connection many years prior to that, just being there for a day on a ship. And I thought, my gosh, there's something magical about this place. And it felt exotic, and the people were just so genuinely sweet and kind and gentle. And that remained with me for quite a number of years in my mind, so that when I came to planning this next part of my journey, I said, that's where I want to be. I want to be in Hawaii and be around that feeling. So I was very determined when I moved down there that I was going to embrace the community. Would have been very easy to start hitting bars and restaurants and kind of being like a tourist, but I was determined not to do that. I really wanted to embrace the community, and I knew nobody when I moved down there, so straight away I started getting involved in finding ways what I could do to start making friends, and in embracing the community, and in finding my path to contributing to the community. So that came in a number of ways. For example, I always loved golf, so I joined a golf club down there on just a part-time membership, and got to reconnect with something that I enjoyed for many years but hadn't been able to do consistently. And just through that, met a wonderful circle of friends. I talked yesterday about cycling, cooking. I had a long list of stuff that I wanted to do. Snorkeling, scuba diving, snorkeling were big in my world down there. And what became my all-time favorite thing to do was to snorkel with turtles. I found a spot on a beach where I would go probably 4 or 5 days a week at exactly around the same time, around 5:15, and that's when the turtles were feeding. And I go out and snorkel, and I mean, these turtles were just so majestic, and in some cases they were really big, but they'd be feeding off the corals and off the rocks, and just to be swimming in such close proximity to them, magical creatures, just magic, just moving so slowly and graceful, and so I was fascinated, still am, with turtles. So I was opening up to all these new experiences. I'd spoken yesterday about finding my calling nearly in that first year, because as I'd mentioned, I couldn't work, but I'd wanted to look for an opportunity to get involved in community and charity. And that came within my first week there, through this beautiful church that I came upon, and met these wonderful, wonderful people through church. It was just, again, it was just a feeling. It was, you know, people embraced life and friendship in just a very unique way for me down there. Life just seemed slower. Being an island, obviously it was, but everyone just moved a little bit slower, talked a little bit slower, spent more time talking with each other. So I was so drawn to this, and I mean, I felt within a very short space of time, I'm like, this is home. This is where my life is going to be. So I came across at that very first mass I went to, church I went to, at part of the ceremony, the priest started talking about an organization that this particular church were involved in, and it was an organization called A Cup of Cold Water, A Cup of Cold Water. And what it was a non-profit, an outreach program that was feeding the homeless people on Maui, helping to feed the homeless people. And when I heard this, my ears just picked up right away and was fascinated to learn more. And as it turns out, I knew nothing about this. Hawaii has the highest per capita, it has the highest homeless population in all 52 states in America. And I was staggered when I came to learn this. I mean, I've seen homeless in San Francisco. It's heartbreaking. In New York, in so many cities. And to know that Hawaii had per capita the highest homeless rate was just heartbreaking. And the reason that was, I very quickly came to learn, was that it hadn't been it hadn't been proven, but it was absolutely happening that a lot of states around America were trying to improve their homeless numbers, and they were basically homeless part of the homeless population. They were putting them on planes and sending them to Hawaii. And it was a more attractive, place like Chicago, New York, that have these awful winters, and not to have a roof over your head. So Hawaii, heartbreaking to have learned this, but Hawaii was an attractive option for a lot of homeless people around America. So because of that, that's why they had the highest, and still do, the highest population per capita of homeless people. Just heartbreaking. So I embraced this. I absolutely wanted to learn more about this, and I reached out to the priest. Actually, I think I sent an email, just thanking them for such a beautiful ceremony, and just how moving it was and how connected I felt, and that I would love to learn more about a cup of cold water. And the priest emailed back, and it was lovely. She set up meeting with one of the members at the following Sunday Mass, and one of the members who was involved in a cup of cold water was going to be at that Mass, and we could hook up afterwards and have a chat. So I was in. I'm like, thank you so much, would love that. And went to Mass the following Sunday and met up with this gentleman who, right off the bat, he was a dude. He was such a cool dude. He was in his 70s, had this, I remember, this white haired goatee, was wearing this Aloha shirt, big, big blue eyes. This guy was just, he was like a surfer. He was like a surfer. And his name was Duke Casper. And had a conversation with Duke after church, and I was just captivated. I was absolutely captivated. As it turns out, Duke and his lovely wife Susie are still dear close friends of mine. We became incredibly tight down there in Hawaii, and I'll talk more to that. And I obviously don't live there now. I live in Cayman. They actually live in New York and have done for the last couple of years. They moved back there to reconnect with their grandkids and family. We still see each other. I saw them just before COVID. We were in New York and got to catch up, and they have been down to Cayman as well. So we're yeah, I'll talk more to that in another video, but they became and still are just very special friends. So this wonderful charity, Cup of Cold Water, so what it involved about 80 volunteers, and they had a van and would load up the van 3 times a week and go to different parts of Maui where the homeless population would generally be and hang out, and would distribute everything, a bottle of cold water, chilled water. But it went far beyond that. They, through donations, everything from flip-flops to bed sheets to, not medical supplies, but razors, toothpaste, shampoo, snacks, high-protein bars, canned food items, and also on occasion sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And that was something that I also, as time went on, got involved in another project for the homeless on Maui, and the peanut butter and jelly was very significant to that. I'll touch on that. But it was just, it was an amazing organization, like-minded people that were just so grateful of the life they were living in Hawaii, and wanted to give back, and this was an outlet to give back. So I jumped on board right away. I had no hesitation. I had to go through some training, different things. I'd never dealt with homeless for the most part. I had a little bit in Ireland, but just to stop and talk, but to actually, to provide this um, nourishment to a homeless population. And the approach with the cup of cold water, it was very much embracing. It was so much more than just the giving, and the giving was amazing. It was about connecting. It was about shaking their hand, about really getting down and dirty with what for a lot of people are uncomfortable with. And I was there, but I wanted to break those fears, because ultimately that's where it was coming from. And over the course of the time I was there, and getting to know so many of the homeless Ohana, we call them Ohana, which is Hawaiian for family, and just to get to know them, and their stories, and everyone had a story. That was the thing, but it was just incredibly moving. I'd go out in these van runs and help distribute, and you'd come off it absolutely exhausted. And it was usually a 2 hour run, 2 maybe 3 hour run, and you did it twice, sometimes 3 times a week, and you would be shattered coming off it. And the reason for that was the emotional drain of what you'd just gone through. But it was never about that. You'd never hesitate to go back out and do it again, because it wasn't about any of that. It was about you giving yourself to help others. And I found my calling, and it has remained with me, hopefully to this day, and certainly in my future plans, that are very much aligned with what that part of the journey led me to, in the connection that I felt and still feel with, especially with homeless people. So I'll talk more about it. I hope I've done it justice in describing what the organization is about. It was such a gift and such a blessing to come into my life. So as always, thanks for tuning in. Have a safe day out there coming into the weekend. Hope you have some nice plans, and please be gentle on yourselves. Thanks so much. Bye. Bye.